Hi, and welcome back to the third series on building an app with Lavaca. Today we're going to be going through and actually finishing out this view and adding some functionality to it. So let's hop back over to the code. So if you remember, we left off with comment being the only thing that's outputting to the view. What we really want is to have a scrollable list of all the different images for each user. So we've got something kind of a quick div that you can use called overflow scroll. So you just make a div, give it a class of overflow scroll, and that just basically positions it absolutely and adds overflow scroll in the x-axis. And then as a child of that, you do the inner. So div class equals overflow scroll inner. What inner does is it basically adds a translation to it so that you don't have flickering when you're scrolling along list. It's a pretty common thing in normal UI web views in iOS. And so that's just kind of a hotfix for it. And then we end them. And so that's going to have them in a scrollable container. Then we'll make each of the different articles in there a section. So section, and we'll give that a class of food wrapper. And we'll fill each of the food wrappers with the user's information, the image, and then the comments and the little like and share buttons. So we'll start out with, like I said, with users. Div class equals user. And I'm going to go ahead and fast forward this so you don't have to hear me typing out every single instance. So I'm going to stop the video right here so you can kind of see what I'm doing with the username. So this is the top area with the user's image and then the name of the user. And so what I'm going to do is use user.username. And if we look at our console again, I need to, let me add that back in there so that we can see what our scope is showing. Let's save that, go over and look at it. So look at the console. Each user has a username, and so we're just going to use dot syntax to go user dot object username. So user dot username. We can do the same thing for the profile image. So I'm going to go back over to profile image, and I'm just going to use a normal style tag to add the background image and have it be a URL with the correct URL for the user. User dot, I think it's a profile, what is it? Profile image. All right, sorry for that little interruption. I had to fix some of the styles in here. But if we go and look at what it's rendering out now, we can see that we have the user section with the profile image that's choosing a random image from unsplash.it and as well as our comment. So I'm going to go ahead and finish wrapping up the rest of the DOM, and then we can pick back up to add some interaction. Alrighty, now that we have our view built out, let's see what we actually are building. So we have this scrollable area. We've got the username, the image, the little like and share icons, how many likes it has, and then the user and the comment. So just to kind of quickly go over what I did in this so that you can build it yourself as well. We have a section called food wrapper. Underneath it, it's got a user, an image, and then a comment section. Underneath each of those, we've got the profile image and the actual username. So that's this little area right here, this and that. We have an image with the image source of the image URL. So that's this guy. And the reason we wrap it in an image instead of just using the image tag is so that we can have that animation afterwards. We're going to use a pseudo element to animate the heart up, and so we can't use pseudo elements on an image tag. And then finally we have this comment section. This has the connect area where you can like and share, as well as the likes which is just a filled like, and tells you how many likes there are. And then we have the comment section for the user and comment. Now, if you're building this out, a lot further, and you wanted to add a bunch of comments, you would then, iterate over all of the different comments that are on that post. But for this, we're just going to have the one comment. All right, so next we're going to want to add some interaction. So when you double tap these, we want to have that heart animation. And we want it to update the heart here and the amount of likes here by 1. So to do that, we're going to use something called map event. So let's hop over the code and go to the home view. All right, I'm going to have this actually split it to be side by side so that we can have our DOM over here and the view that we're working on over here. So we're going to use this.map event, and that takes an object with the thing that you want to affect. So in this case, we want to have a tap event on our, on our image. So we want the food wrapper. We do, anytime you tap on a food wrapper image, so just like you would with a jQuery selection, same thing. It's actually doing a jQuery selection behind the scenes. We want it to do what? Well, we want it to have another object for each of the events. So in this case, we're going to have a tap event, and we want it to call a function. So we just call this dot on tap food image, and then we go ahead and create that. And this will give you back the jQuery event as a parameter. And so what we want to do is, you know what, I'm going to rename this to just like, because that's the action we're doing. So a couple things we're going to need to do with this function. We need to figure out which of the images you have liked, which object in the collection does that relate to, and then we need to get the values of whether it's already liked to know if we need to increase it, and increase it if we do. So we'll go ahead and take a look at how to do that. First thing I'm going to do is we probably want it to actually be on the double tap. Now there are some double tap jQuery events that you can get to add in there, but I wanted to kind of keep it bare bones on this one, so I'm just going to write my own double tap since it's so lightweight to do. So what I'll do is basically say if there is a single tap, so this dot single tapped, and what I'm going to do is make the current index that you tap the value of single tapped. So if that equals e dot current target dot dataset dot index. So the way this is going to work is we're going to add a data index to both the image and the wrapper so that we can kind of easily navigate between the two. If you tap the image, you can know which index you're at, or if you do some other event on the food wrapper, you can know that as well. So I'm just going to add data index and put the $IDX. That's another dust helper. Oh, forgot my equal sign. And I'm going to do the same thing on the image as well. So now I'm saying if the current one that I tap, grab its data set, which is this guy, any data attributes, and grab the index. If that equals single tapped, then do something here. Otherwise, what we'll do is basically set a timeout to null out that value if you don't tap it a second time. So I'm going to do this dot single tapped equals e dot current target dot dataset dot index and set timeout. Oh. And we'll just say this dot single tapped equals null. And then, like I said, we'll probably do that after 250 milliseconds. So let's actually just console log something here. So I put a breakpoint in here under like, and so when we tap it once, it does get hit. And if we do look at this.single tab, that's undefined, and we have a current target data set index equals 0. So since we have this equals equals equals, we're checking not only the value, but the type as well. So we'll go jump over that, and looks like it didn't hit like we expected to. Now we're going to set the value to that. So now it's 0, and then in 250 milliseconds we're going to null it out. Now this isn't the best double tap handler, but it works for what we need it to. So I'm going to see if we get a console warn on a double tap. Oh, there we go. We got it liked. And it knows which one is liked because of that data index. All right, now that we have that working, let's go ahead and update the model that you have liked it and re-render that area of the view. So what we'll do is we'll null out that value again. So we'll do this.single tap equals null. And we're going to grab the current target with a jQuery selector to add a class and remove a class when we need to. So we'll do add e.currentTarget add class and add a class of liked. This should trigger the animation. And what we'll do to remove that class of liked is we'll use next animation end. This basically is going to watch whatever selector you put into it. So I'm going to put e.currentTarget, and we're going to add next animation end and pass that a function, and we'll just say remove that class. So e.currentTarget remove class of liked. And so we're just basically looking at next animation of this element, remove the class, do this function. So let's see if that's actually animating. Hey, we have an animation. All right, so next thing we're going to do is update the model so that we get this heart and this liked right here. So to update the model, we're going to use that same index. So we're going to say this.model, and we're going to use e.currentTarget.dataset.index. You know, I'm going to make this easier on us if we ever have to do it in the future. Just set it to a variable. So now we can just replace any instance of this with index. All right, so models and collections are a little bit different on how we call functions on them. Basically, if we use anything like mount or lodash or underscore, we want it to treat our model and collection as if it's a plain object. But we may also want some custom functionality like fetching data from the server or you know, sorting data when it comes back from the server. Stuff that, you know, mount and lodash don't care about, but we as developers do. So we've kind of gone the Angular route by prepending it with a $sign with whatever function you want to call. So we've got $set, and we're going to set, and that can either take a plain, you know, liked to a value of true, or in this case we're wanting to pass it an object to do multiple things at once. So we're going to do liked to true. We also want to update the amount of likes. So we'll set the value of likes. Actually, don't need these guys. To this.model index.likes, if that exists. Then add one to it. This.model index.likes. And if it doesn't exist, we'll do it, set it to 1. So if it's 0, if this does not exist, set it to 1. Otherwise, add 1 to it. So let's go ahead and test to see if that's working as expected. Oh, we're getting an error. What's our error? Alrighty, so let's like it. Oh, take that breakpoint out. So it says it was liked, but we don't see anything redraw. So maybe it didn't actually hit. So let's put a breakpoint in here. Actually, we can leave it there. We'll like it. All right, so before we check to make sure it's working, I want to wrap this in an else so that we either do this or this. And the other thing I forgot to do earlier when building out this view is we need to add, basically if the picture is liked already, we want it to have a data attribute of liked. So we'll say if liked, then data liked. So it's only going to add this if that is already liked. So we'll save that and save our view. And look, this one's already liked. This one is not. So let's go ahead and like this one and see if it updates. So we have the model, and it's supposed to have 53 likes. And looks like it does. It does have 53 likes, but it's not liked yet. So if we jump over this, we should be able to check this .model index again and see if it actually updated. Looks like here we go, liked, true. So if we click play, it didn't re-render here, and the reason is because we didn't explicitly say, hey, re-render. There's things like React, for example, that are doing a virtual DOM and diffing when the model changes, or things like Angular that have two-way data binding. We went more of the backbone style with this, where you have to explicitly say, hey, I've changed, what should I do? So we'll want to add in a function for when the model changes. So we have a simple way to do that. I'll go back over to our view, and we'll say when the model has triggered a change, so just like we did the tap event, we want to listen for a change event. And we'll say this dot on model change. And then we'll want to write that, but let's make sure that it actually works. I'm going to put a debugger statement in here. This isn't really the recommended way of debugging, but if you have an empty thing, when it goes and runs through Babel, it basically makes that into one line like that, which we don't want. We want to be able to put a breakpoint in there just to make sure it's getting hit. Alrighty, so now we're going to go in here, we're going to double tap this. It looks like we did hit it. If we look at this, the event that's passed back tells you the values that have changed. So we replaced the old value of 54 and made it, it was 53 and now it's 54. Then we also updated the value of true for liked. So we need to loop through each of these and check if the value is liked and just re-render that whole comment section. We don't really care about this one, since if we look at our view, we have this that we need to redraw and this that we need to redraw. So we might as well just do both at the same time and only care about one attribute. So let's go back to our onModel change, and we are going to loop through each of the changes. So I'm just going to name this something easier to remember. So change, and do change.for each. Since we know that's going to be an array, we can do that. And we'll write our for each like so. Then we need to check if the e, which is going to be each of the, it's going to loop through each of them. If there's an e.path, which we assume there's going to be, but we don't know for sure. And the path is longer than 1. So e.path is .length is greater than 1. And the reason we're doing this is just to make sure that we're targeting the right thing. We don't cause an error. And our e.path of 1 is equal to liked. close it. I'll put that debugger back in there. So now we're going to see once the model changes, we'll see if that hits. So it is getting hit. Look at E right now. It's the add that we saw earlier. We want to check the value, but if we see add, then we know that it's changing that value. So what we're going to want to do is basically just create an array that we can then comma separate. So if there's 3 different model objects on the model that have changed, we can make basically an array of all of the different ones that need to be redrawn. So what I'll do for that is basically go in here. Since it's a comma separated value, I'm going to do let CSV for comma separated value. And then we'll just go ahead and push on. So CSV dot push. And what do we want to target? We want to target the food wrapper with the matching data index, and the of the index is in here. So 0 is the index in the array. And then redraw the comment section. So we're going to do just that. We're going to do dot food wrapper that matches a data index of e dot path 0. Which remember e dot path 0 is 1 plus the closing bracket for that. And then we're here now. We need to get comments. So dot comments. And we will basically call this dot render on the CSV, and we're going to, since it's an array and we want it to be a string, we do dot join. And we want to join each of the values, comma separated, comma space. So all that to say, let's see if it works. I'm going to take this breakpoint out. All right, so here's one that's not liked. We will double tap it, and it redrew this, and it redrew that. So if you want to step through and see exactly how that's working, I'll do that one more down here just so you can kind of see. This guy's not been liked. So CSV right now is just only that third one because it's the only one that's changed. And basically it goes in and says, create this and then separate it. So if we comma separate that out, comments. One other thing to mention. So this dot render is a function on view. You can call this dot render by itself, but that's going to re-render everything. And we want it to only target specific things. Otherwise, the user is going to be, it's going to lose its scroll position because it's going to redraw. And it's not going to be a good experience for the user because they're just going to see a flash of white. Just like, in the old days of the web when you click on a link and you'd see a white page before you saw any content. Now, most websites have taken care of at least some of that. And we want to, kind of mimic the way a native app feels by not having flickering and flashing between views. So that's how this home view is built out. In the next video, now that we have liking working, in the next video we're going to build out the tab bar functionality so that we can have our home tab down here, the little camera icon, and then the profile view that will have its own view and model tied to it.